Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started in just a little bit because we just have like a couple minutes. I don't know, I'm just going to ask, how many of you guys have seen Black Panther?
Yeah.
If you haven't seen it, I saw you not raise your hand, it's okay, I don't want to call you out, but I did just call you out. I'm sorry. I'm kind of that person.
No, it's okay. I'm going to go see it this week.
Oh, yes, see it. It's amazing. I saw other panels that are on the schedule, like why Black superheroes matter, all kinds of different stuff. It's so exciting. We're living in an amazing, exciting time as far as like entertainment media moving into a new space. And one of the things that I talk a lot about is essentially the only good thing that came out of 2016 was Lemonade. And it was a actual rebellion. She sparked her own movement. And a lot of people don't see it like that because we're like, oh, well, it's just she released an album and went on tour. No. She took Black is beautiful, Black is bold, all of this symbolism, all of these narratives that have been around forever, packed them not only into her music, but also into the lyrics, into the visuals, every little piece of it. And she performed Formation at the fucking Super Bowl. If that is not an FU to white supremacy and patriarchy, I don't know what is. Literally, I don't know what is. That was one of the most revolutionary moments that I think we will ever actually witness. Maybe, hopefully there's more. Hopefully there's more. But I want to give credit to the fact that that was, sure, it's entertainment, but that was feminist, anti-racist, like, art in action. Actual action. And she got so much, I mean, sure, we all loved it, right? We were like, oh, it's so beautiful, you know? But I remember watching this, because I'm an avid football fan. I have issues with the NFL, but I'm an avid football fan. So we watch the Super Bowl every year. It's a big thing for our family. And we were all sitting there. My family is very multi-ethnic. We have people from literally all over the globe that have kind of married in or come in. So we got Black people, we got Thai people, we got Native people, we got Latino people, all sitting there watching the Super Bowl. When Formation happened, we literally went silent. And I felt afraid. And I'm not joking with you. I felt scared for her and for those dancers. I felt fear, actual fear. And every single person in this room who right before that had been talking smack about, what was the white boy band that was up there before her?
Coldplay.
Nobody remembers.
Coldplay.
I got you, girl.
2 seconds before that, we were all talking smack about them. And then literally the moment it happened, we all just like, right? And that's when you know, like, something amazing just happened. Somebody is doing something that is actually causing tension. And that's what that moment was. I don't know if that started what we're looking at as far as Black Panther, A Wrinkle in Time, all these new things, but I know that that was a pivotal moment that we're going to look back like 20 years from now and be like, 2016 was all about Lemonade. And it started at the Super Bowl. So shout out to Beyonce. That was not part of the presentation at all. So welcome to the Mixing It Up Multiracial Comic Characters on the Rise. My name is Ina Braxton. I use she, her pronouns. I'm Assistant Director at the University of Washington, Bothell at the Digital Future Lab, where we teach game development and software development to lots of different folks and create a safe space for them to pursue that. And I'm joined by...
I'm Morgan. I work at the Digital Feature Lab that Ina runs. I use she, her, or they, them pronouns, pretty interchangeable. I'm one of the artists there.
Yes. We were supposed to be joined by our other research partner, Michelle, but she has been taken with the flu. That is a doozy this year, and cannot leave her house at all. So, to do anything, very sad. We all kind of started this. Michelle is actually a doctoral student at the University of Washington, doing her doctor's in multicultural education. And we kind of started this because when she was finishing her master's, I stepped up as a capstone advisor for her to do a digital literary arts project. And as I started guiding her through that, she had amazing ideas about projecting AR projections all over the street in Bothell and doing all this stuff, and I was like, maybe we should roll it back a little bit. As we started to build that relationship, we brought in Morgan, who's an amazing concept artist, who I work with, and we started to kind of see that there was, obviously, we're all mixed women, we're all black and white, and kind of identify with that, and have that as a shared lived experience. And so we started kind of collecting stories and really trying to say, create a safe space for us to share creatively together about our lived experiences as being multi-ethnic people and multi-ethnic women, and where our identity comes from, how we kind of walk that out. We started to actually then look at different representations within media. Everything from Lemonade to comic books to movies, and started to kind of see that what we really wanted to do was look at what were the current trends, because we were seeing all these characters come out, and we're going to talk about 4 particular books. But how are they holding up, right? Just because you can create things and you can plaster diversity onto things in your thing, is it actually doing that revolutionary moment that Lemonade was, right? Is it actually moving us forward? Or is it just reiterating stuff from the past, those same stereotypes, those same negative connotations? Or is it just kind of holding pace? So with that, we wanted to kind of review some of the stuff, and we have this is kind of what we're going to do. Sorry, I was supposed to tell you that before, but I went off on Lemonade and got distracted. Yes, we're actually really excited. I'm going to say this now so you guys are prepped and ready for it. So we're right now collecting qualitative surveys, feedback on stuff. So we have iPads that we want to go around and just, if you can, while you're listening, fill out. It's already prepped and ready to go. I think you just have to put your email in there. And this is all voluntary. You don't have to do it. And it's just kind of on your reading of graphic novels and different stuff like that. So we're actually collecting this data right now, and we've been doing it in different groups all over to try and start building out, what do people expect from mixed comic characters? How do they categorize them? Are they familiar with them? Do they see them? How often do they see them? And if they do, where do they place them? Superhero, villain, anti-hero, how do they place them? Okay? I just did introductions. There's Michelle. Michelle's not here. Sorry, Michelle. Oh,
our hair was so short back then.
Yes, our hair was very short back then. Very short and different colors, but okay. So for this collective, we operate by both reading about Black mixed race characters, but also reading with Black mixed race critical lens. With this focus on multiracial representation, we center Blackness as a tribute to our common identity, history, and shared struggles. We align with Sika de Gobivi Mullins, Identity, History, and Shared Struggles, who in her book, Crossing Black, calls for a Black sentient mixed race identity, where sentience equates to an awareness. Black sentience initiates a mixed race subjectivity that includes a particular awareness of the world, a perception rooted in Blackness. Whereas many multiracial movements, including the US Census, to check one or more boxes, tend to diminish Blackness, By keeping blackness at the center of our work, we reject any projection that biracial or multiracial identities are elite and privileged. So it's just kind of the lens that we're reading through and kind of gathering and how we kind of see our identity. And this is something that is not necessarily unique, obviously, to just our group. This is something that's kind of an emerging identity that is very prevalent within the Black community right now, this idea of universal blackness, of blackness spanning across the globe and really encompassing and holding a lot of different identities within it, and that there's just this wide diversity of Black experiences. And as we live as Black people and move through the world, that is us being Black in the world. So these are some of the stereotypes that we were kind of looking for or aware of as we were reading. And as we were reading, we were looking at character bio, physical appearance, descriptions of the characters, important people in their lives, notable bits. We were also looking at the year of publishing, who the authors and artists were and what ethnicity they were, what publishing house, and how many volumes. Then, how does the actual narrative display mixed identity? So is it part of the narrative? Is it just, are they silent on it? Where does it come in? And then how important is race and ethnicity to the character's identity arc, right? So where does it come into that? And then what sort of stereotypes are present in the work? And then looking at this through the lens of feminism, how does this work stand up? And unfortunately, we don't have a good definition in the slides of what definition of feminism we're working with, and I apologize for that because I know there's so many, and if I get it wrong, everybody's gonna kill me. But it's kind of like, women are great and they're awesome and sex and yeah. Does that work with everybody in the room? Yes? Okay. Okay.
Very brief history of feminism.
Sorry. I am an academic, I swear. Okay, so if the category on the far side, on the left, these are some of the like historical stereotypes that you would see about multi-ethnic characters or people. And this stuff goes back to, you know, like antebellum times, right? So you have the tragic mulatta trope, right? You have the new millennial, that's more now, is like they're gonna save the world because of their mixed heritage. They're just amazing and wonderful because if you took this and you took that, you made something great, which really does fit with our superhero thing. Anyways, yeah, I just saw that. It goes into, right, the exceptional multiracial, the vanguards of the future, right? Two-faced, can't be trusted, right? Because they're loyal to who? Who are you loyal to? Are you loyal to your masters? Or are you loyal to the slaves, right? Who are you loyal to right now? And these came from slavery, but these are not in any way not like still thrown around and still a part of people's lived experiences today, okay? So there's still this tension, like who are you loyal, who are you really, right? Sickly or weak, right? There's this kind of idea of like dampening the blood. If you dampen the blood a little too much, you're gonna get somebody who's sickly and weak, right? Exotic, harlot, right? Which comes from the idea of just like multiracial women just being owned and being used as essentially like sex slaves during slave times, right? And that same stereotype is still kind of following us through right now. Your prison bae, your bae in prison. Good hair, right? Because, you know, everybody who's multi-ethnic has good hair, apparently. Smarter, special, or hybrid, right? And then infertile or barren. So this was kind of an idea, again, this goes back to antebellum slave period, that what they called then was mulattoes, which I don't even like that word, couldn't actually have children, which wasn't true, but they had decided in their crazy eugenics brain that that was true, that it was like, well, if you have a donkey and an ass, anyways. they can't have children, right? So or they shouldn't. They can't and they shouldn't. It was more so, I think, this fear of, well, what happens, right? We're dealing with people that had this one drop rule. So like, okay, well, I can control you because you still visibly look black enough that I can keep you out of society and keep white privilege from you. But if you have kids, ooh, how do I detect them and keep things from them, right? So I think it was less about like they are and more about we should keep them from doing that because their blood will get into us, yes? So if you look on the right-hand side, what we have are some of the stereotypes that are for black women in general. And these play into stereotypes for multi-ethnic, mixed-race black women as well, right? So you have the angry black woman. You have the mammy, right, who's like tending to everybody's needs except for her own and except for her own children, right? You have the primitive, right? You have unwomanly, domineering, and dirty. And it was like really believed that black women could not be fragile, that they actually didn't have it in them to be fragile and delicate, that somehow they just were just these domineering, angry, primitive, servile women, yeah? Again, we're talking about people that had it in their heads, this eugenics mindset, this white supremacist breeding mindset that had predetermined and decided for us what society was going to look like and what people were going to do, okay? It sounds so gross now to us because it's like, ugh, right? But we haven't actually gotten that far away from some of these stereotypes. Not as far as we want to be, I'll say. Can we all agree on that? Probably, because we wouldn't be here if we if we didn't. Okay, so let's jump into it.
Are we diving right into it?
Yes, let's jump into it.
Excellent.
Okay, so one of the, of course, one of the very first books that came up and series that came up was Bitch Planet.
There's a lot to be said.
There's a lot to be said. Written by Kelly Sudicano.
The Conic, yes, and Valentine Delandro.
Yes.
I saw both of them a couple of years ago here. An interesting note, Valentine Delandro is, identifies as black, he's African American. He does all of the artwork, while Kelly Sudicano is a white woman who does all of the writing for all of these characters. And you can see, as we've read through a bunch of different books of different authors and different backgrounds, you can see the way race manifests and the features that are more prominent and more important that are brought forward and are more critical to the storyline than it is to connecting to that character's identity.
So we chose to focus on one character, Penny Roll, which is one of the characters in prison on Bitch Planet, who the main character actually ends up kind of befriending. She's a very large woman, bigger than most of the men even guarding her. And really, when we look back at that stereotype slide, she basically is all of those stereotypes on the right side. She's portrayed as this almost mammy-like figure in the very beginning, cooking and baking and serving everybody their food, and everybody's getting real happy off her cooking and her baking, right? That's in her backstory. Then as she moves to prison, she just becomes this angry, primitive, I'm gonna shut up anytime I can character. She's also intensely loyal to her friends and willing to do whatever it takes to protect them. But she is very much inhabiting every single one of those stereotypes.
There's nothing inherently wrong with writing a character that has or embodies these stereotypes. It's just being conscious of it and exactly what you're doing in writing that, and making sure it's not all falling onto the shoulders of a single character. However, as much as I adore and love Penny Roll and I appreciate Bitch Planet, her character is very complex and it's a little hard to see how much the meta behind why we wrote the character this way, aside from being an aggressive kind of placeholder, or just a force more than an actual like mixed race black woman character. You actually made a really interesting point about her name
Yes.
the other day.
Yeah, so when I read this, I don't know, it's probably just a thing that my brain did. Her name is Penny Roll. I had been reading her name as Penny Royal, which is a herb that you can take to abort babies. So when we come back to that idea of infertility, it's very interesting. And I don't know, I have not had this confirmed from the author that that was a intended connection, but I actually had been reading this book the whole entire time, assuming that her name was Penny Royal, after the herb that you can use to abort your babies. I have no idea. I'll have to catch up and get an answer on that one. Some of the more complex things about this character that I do love that the author did with this, especially in this particular scene, when they're trying so hard to break this character and convince her that her identity and her body is wrong. And she just, like, there's just no, and this is that moment where, like, they're trying so hard, like, is it like the inversion therapy, I think it's called, or something, to, like, get her to swallow their narrative and regurgitate it back at them. And she just cannot and does not do it. And it is a liberating moment in that book to read that as a woman, and as a woman of color and a black woman, to see that, to see her stare herself in the mirror and just see this continual reflection of beauty and strength, just how she is. Like, no different, no changes, no tucks, no nips, just how she is. So, complex. It's not a simple answer, right? On one hand, she kind of embodies a lot of these negative stereotypes that I would like to see less of. And on the other hand, does this amazing, like, liberating moment, like, is this actor and gives us all this, like, voyeuristic freedom to live through her moment, right? So, yeah, great. Next. And we picked this one because it's hilarious. Do you want to introduce this one?
Yeah, so this is from a comic called Saga, written by Brian K. Vaughan, I believe his last name is pronounced, and then Fiona Staples. This character, she's actually the grumpy one. It's one of the main characters of the series named Alana. Her character is extremely compelling. I remember I saw her on the cover, I'm like, this is my book now, and I bought like the whole shelf. But her name is Alana, and I believe she's a mixed race character, and also the child she has is very visibly mixed race. A lot of the narrative is based on these two different species or races on two different planets. They go by horns and wings for more colloquial terms, and one has horns and the other has wings, and she has wings. And her daughter Hazel, I don't want to spoil it, but it's been out for a while. Yeah, well, she has a kid, and the kid has both.
She has horns and wings!
She has horns and wings! It's so cool and so beautiful, but Alana on her own and the path she takes to get there is absolutely, like, vibrant and vivid and incredibly hilarious and endearing.
So the reason why we picked this was this absentee mother. So where's Alana's mother? Because that character that her dad is marrying is not her mother. Where is her mother? We never see her mother. She is this absentee figure who never comes up and we don't get to meet, right? Which again, when we come back to those stereotypes, and I don't think this was actually on the slide, but for a lot of black women, especially in antebellum South and moving forward, care work was your work. And you were not caring for your children, you were caring for white people's children. You were nursing their children, you were putting them to bed, and your kids were somewhere else. Because you couldn't afford, in order to actually provide something for them, you had to leave them. So we have this absentee mother figure appearing again in this comic book. And it's subtle, but it's amazing. And it's striking. And that is like a real truth. That's still this interesting truth that we're kind of wrestling with right now. This comic book, out of all of the ones that we reviewed, interestingly enough, of course, like, when we talk about how does race and ethnicity enter into the narrative, the whole narrative is about that, right? The whole narrative is like, well, we got these people, and we got these people, and they don't like each other, and like, they even say the same things. They're like, I don't even think they could have a baby together. They couldn't have it. Those lines actually are in the book. And if they are, the baby's gonna die, it's gonna be weak, right? Because they've decided for so long that they can't live with each other and that they're so different that there's no way that this could ever happen, right? What's frustrating about this character is that when you look at her facial features, she is the most white-coated of the characters that we're reviewing, right? She doesn't have this very like black African mixed look to her. She's very not, right? And that is kind of the only thing that kind of pulls away, is just a visual representation that they chose to go with this character, always having her have really, really, really straight hair, really thin straight hair, the angled nose, angled cheeks, thin lips, everything, right? They really whitewashed all of her features. And I'm not sure why they did that when they knew that, you know, what they were doing, but, however, really well written. You get this sense of tension in the character, this lived tension between her identity, that's almost it's there and it's not there, which I think as multiracial people can all identify with, that we're constantly in this sense of, you know, you're living but you're kind of in between or trying to be. And this character somehow managed to come across in her written pieces. And it's not surprising Fiona Staples is multi-ethnic.
Yeah, Fiona Staples is a key comic artist. She does all of this illustrating. She is also mixed race and has a pretty big hand, from what I understand, in the writing of these characters, which is why I say the meta is so advanced. But it is. She understands these stereotypes and how to live in between and also be not enough to be both or neither. And she really communicates that, I think, very effectively, not only just through Alana, but through Alana's kid and through the way Alana interacts with the rest of these other characters who get to be, is kind of a bad way to put this, but who are identified as one or the other.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that they did right is they surrounded this character with a cast of different characters, really active female characters, which on Bitch Planet they do have a whole cast of active female characters. They just tend to not have the complexity that you see in Saga. Saga has characters that are very, very, very in-depth. A couple years ago I cosplayed as Gwendolyn, partially because I think that she shows that she kind of has that angry black woman stereotype while then having this intense, deep, like soft side and complexity to her. And to me, she was so fully formed that I had to do it. I had to just want to be her. And I think that's another point that kind of sets this apart from Bitch Planet, was that they really surrounded the cast with characters that all had agency, all had deep, complex narratives and personalities.
Mm-hmm. And part of that is, like, there's nothing inherently wrong with giving a character, like, having them fit into a stereotype. It's more, are they just playing the stereotype, or are they acknowledging the stereotype and doing something about it, like either internally or externally?
Okay. Then we come to Wicked and Divine. I love the way that formatted the D down. Wicked.
I mean, the shorthand is Wicked.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. This
one is beautiful. You can see the hair texture change immediately. I love this character. Her name is Laura. No, gosh, she says Laura and Lauren, and I can never remember. But it is Laura, either with an N or not. How many people are actively reading with Div? I don't want to spoil anything. Okay, cool. I think I've only read to like the 4th or 5th volume, not the most recent one. I don't care if it spoils. Y'all can spoil it for me. But
It's really good.
this character is also mixed race. Oh my gosh, I love her to bits. She was also on the cover of the first book, which I picked up and grabbed. Like, this girl looks like me, so I have to buy the whole shelf kind of a thing, because we're grasping at straws. But her character, like, individually as a person, has a huge transformation from what you see on the far side to what you see over here, because if I recall correctly, the way the lore works, she turns into a goddess, she turns into Persephone. Everything that was Laura is lost. There's no soul or internal bit that is Laura anymore. It is now all internally Persephone, who is, her name means the destroyer. She's the goddess of the underworld. She takes and she has fun and she likes plants. But there's nothing left of Laura or Laura's identity aside from the body that Persephone inhabited.
And so when we first meet Laura, we see her parents, and so we get to see like a multiracial family in it, and it's great and exciting, and it's almost like a non-issue. So you're kind of like, oh, okay, cool. I like that it's a non-issue. Great, I'll go with that. But then you're kind of like waiting for Laura to be black, and I'm still waiting. It doesn't happen, it comes up a little later, kind of. But then not really. And so this book overall, as far as representation goes, great cast. They put all the right people, right? You almost have every single ethnicity represented in the pantheon. But because they lose all of their identities upon becoming gods, they lose all of their lived and cultural experiences. And so even though we have these bodies that look so beautifully diverse, we don't get any of the juicy bits. We don't get any of the culture, we don't get any of the lived experiences with them. And so it was almost like it's kind of disappointing in a way. It's like it looks great and I love it, and the story is amazing. So if you're not reading it, you should, because it is absolutely phenomenal and interesting. But I think just as the type of person that I am and the research and work that I do, I wanted all of that. I wanted to hear all of the culture, and I wanted that to come through a little bit more. And especially with like Laura's family, like I don't know, I wanted to kind of see some of this being lived out. And then when you do, there is some moments when they did choose to kind of allow it to come through in certain characters. And then when you actually do see it come through, it ends up being a massive stereotype, which was really disappointing. They have one character, Baal, who they cast, and he's the lightning god, super temperamental, angry, and violent. And he's black. So they did it wrong with that one. And I wish they wouldn't have, but it's fine. They did it. But again, it was that tension of having, like, okay, so we're finally going to get something, and it's not great. However, beautifully written, beautifully drawn, and like really went the whole gambit as far as facial features, different representations of body types and structures, great. But really lacking that depth as far as culture and lived experiences come.
Mm-hmm. That's actually a trope you could kind of see in a lot of. This was started, I think, more in the 2012-2013 era, and that was kind of a point in time where we were recognizing, okay, yeah, we need something other than like generic white guy number 45 to star in our like narrative, but we were losing the content of the characters. We were getting aesthetic checkboxes. So even then, you can see Laura's hair. Hair is a huge thing. It'll come back, don't worry. But Laura's hair, when she's initially still human Laura, is pretty sleek. It's pretty straight. That's probably close to, if you're familiar with the scale, it looks close to like a 2B, 3A.
You'd give it a 2?
I don't even remember. I have to look at the scale again, but the kind of texturing of the hair is very key, especially to the way people write mixed characters. People like the, curly, but not that curly, just like wavy, like give me the beach waves, give me the California beach waves. And then as soon as she turns into Persephone, we get like full-on voodoo priestess, bringer of the end times. That's like her whole character, which is gorgeous, but again, we're losing the cultural context for even the hair texture change, or even the coloring of their hair, and like what do the beads mean? I'm sure they don't know what the beads mean, but I know those beads have significance. And that's sort of just like, we got the visuals, we don't necessarily have the content.
Yeah. Okay. And then this is Concrete Park. And actually,
This panel is PG-13, we wrote that down.
We
This
did.
is very much a PG-13 comic book. It is, we have it up here, we're referencing it. It's a very interesting, very vivid, also very vibrant, I would go to say, comic and storyline. However, we have this, which is super fun, it's super interesting. A lot of what I can just pull off right off the bat. There's a lot of, there's a whole bunch of body diversity. It's either you're kind of going really far in or you're just going a little bit far in. There's no any sort of change, even like if we're going to get graphic, like even breast size. Like it's all that, and it's all like deep V's and all very thick, very straight or wavy hair, which I think almost all of the women in this comic have. Also, fun fact, I believe the one on the left with the blue eyes, she is an AI, and from what I can tell in the first few issues, she is just basically a bit of a sex robot for the girl on the other side, who just gets caught up in some shenanigans. But it's beautiful. I love seeing relationships with women who love women. We don't get that so often. We don't get to see it in such like an interesting and often sexual way. It's usually like, kind of like, oh, they kind of kiss or they kind of look at each other, because it's innocent and there's a whole hierarchy to that. But yes,
this jumps all the way in.
It just starts at 100, which is really good and really real. It's a sci-fi. It's post-apocalyptic sci-fi, prison yard kind of a thing, which is another fun place to put a bunch of brown people. So this comic, I actually really,
get out of the prison, please.
yes, again, it's either the slave narratives or the prison narratives, which have their importance, but we also exist outside of that, all of us. We exist outside of those narratives and outside of those hair types.
What really stands out about this one is just the over-sexualization of everything in it, which is like, it's interesting. Again, it's complex. On one hand, it's like, yeah, right? And on the other hand, it's like, okay. Jeez.
This is the 8th page.
She's literally running around in like a crop top and a skirt that her ass cheeks come out of the back and no shoes. That's how she's out, like running around Concrete Park fighting bad guys. You're like, where are you gonna put your gun? Seriously, where does it go? Oh man.
That's why there's so much space in that bra. Like,
That's I didn't want to be nasty. Oh my god. So it's like, it's good, it's exciting, and then it's also like, come on, you know? And interestingly enough, this one is like not in publication anymore. So it was like here, it was a moment, and now it is gone, unfortunately. The person who pitched the idea, I'm going to forget the actress's name, but she was actually on Living Single. I know her character's name on Living Single, Maxine. And she was kind of the impetus behind the whole book. And then I do not remember her name, and I feel, but anyways, it was there and now it's gone. So it's not in circulation anymore, so we don't really get to like get an end in this. It's also kind of ethnically ambiguous, so they never really like, they don't really necessarily give us like a roadmap for what we're looking at, although it does have a lot of culture and a lot of that lived experiences just coming through in the art and the clothing and all of that. So you get the culture, you get the lived experiences, you don't get the words, so you don't know, like, is she Boricua, like, is she like just multi-ethnic, like what is she, you know, like, I don't get it, right? And we know she lands somewhere in between Puerto Rican and like black. We're not sure, and frankly, I don't know what the difference is, to tell you the truth. That was a Puerto Rican joke, but whatever. So unlike Wictive, you have this culture and these lived experiences coming across without actual titles and names to like, this is a black woman, or this is, whereas in Wictive, they paint it for you. They tell you this is what's going on, right? And we kind of see in each one of the characters, they actually have this kind of ethnicity bio in some of their backstories, but then they end up kind of checking all of that culture at the door, right? Saga, you're getting like kind of everything. And the beauty is that they took it into this alien world, right? So they don't actually need to use the same terminologies that we have. They don't need to use all of these same structures, but it's all there, right? It's all right in front of your face, and they do it so well just by using these different alien races that you're like, oh my God, they got it, Bitch Planet, they're giving you all the terminology, but it is a just stereotype nightmare. And you really ends up kind of lacking the type of depth that we want to see. And interestingly enough, 2 out of 4 of those take place within a prison.
Yep.
So, yeah. Did anybody fill out the survey?
Sadly, there is no internet.
And we were supposed to have papers, but we didn't have
Oh,
papers.
because she was sick. Our
'Cause she's-
beautiful.
Michelle is sick. She was going to bring the papers.
Is it online?
Yes, if you give us your emails, we can send you the survey, and we would love to have you fill out the survey. Collecting qualitative data is so arduous. So help us out. We are young researchers doing the research. Yes, and we are now open for questions. Or if you just want to like say something because you're feeling like you need to say something too.
I just wanted to ask a question about the survey. Is that something we could send to other people, or do you want it to be limited to?
No.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Spread it.
Yes. Yeah. With anything with research, right? This is not a controlled study because it's a qualitative. It's just trying to, right? So it is not a controlled study. So the more participation we get, the better. And then I saw another question.
Sorry, one second.
He's
We're getting emails.
okay. Yay! Getting emails. Do you have? Yeah.
Okay, do you feel like, this is something that I think about a lot, I'm mixed.
Mm-hmm. Hello.
Hi.
I see you.
It took me a long time, 'cause I think, like you talk about Laura's character, I think was kind of where I was until I was like, I don't know, maybe like 20 or something, 1920s, I lived in Southern California, surrounded by Asian people. So I never really had to confront either of my white or black. It wasn't a thing, like an issue.
Yeah.
And so looking at like Laura's character, I'm thinking of this really cool image that an artist named Yoshitani put out, where it was like, mixed people can look like this kind of blended between their two parents look, or they can look very much like one side or the other side.
Yeah.
So do you feel like, given sort of like where we're at in representation in comics, that artists have a responsibility that when they create mixed characters, that they should be not just white passing, but that they should, like, Laura's character isn't black enough? Like, is that an issue? Like, how do you manage that? Because I get that frustration, but also I'm like, well, but mix is like,
All over.
it's so all over.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, well,
Yeah, I think, what's interesting is of all of the characters, the one I identify the most with is Alana, which is
Alana or Laura?
Alana.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But you were referencing Laura, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I was representing.
So, and she is the most white passing of all of the characters, but how she was written is what I grabbed onto. So it's like I want to say, yeah, we need more, people that look, because I think we do, right? Like Wakanda forever, honestly. And like when you write somebody so well that I, as a mixed black woman, was able to just be like, oh my God, you are whoa, we're just, whoa, like that kind of transcended a lot of what, and she looked enough if that makes
Right.
sense,
Yeah.
right?
I think, I mean, and I don't know, maybe other mixed people can agree with this, but sometimes if you're just light brown, I'm like, oh, okay, we're friends.
Yes. I try so hard.
Sometimes it's just like, you see someone's like nose and you're like,
Yeah.
It's automatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I would 100% hear what you're saying. Like even me, I have like pretty European facial features. Like my mom's Irish, so I got a lot of her. And there's no correct way to be mixed. You can be anywhere on this spectrum. However, you still have the content of you. You are going to make up that mixed person. Whenever you're writing someone or whenever you're illustrating someone, you have to go in with the intent of knowing exactly what you're about to write. Because however you write, if it leaves your sketchbook or if it leaves your computer at all, it is going to impact at least one other person who sees it. So if you're writing exclusively white, classic, straight-haired, black characters, you're going to be sending off a certain message. So it's important to be aware of the specifics of every single thing you're writing. It's part of what makes great character design. You do this with every other character you write. Like, we have a billion scruffy white guys. You get to be so much more than just scruffy white guys. Even then, Master Chief, you don't see his face, but he's a scruffy white guy, but he gets to be so much more than just a scruffy white guy. But
eventually.
I'm just going off on a tangent right now, but yeah, everything you write and everything you create is going to affect someone, so make sure you know exactly what you're writing, what you're doing. So again, there's no correct way to be you. There's no correct way to be mixed. There's no correct way to be brown or white. But knowing the specific character, the specific role you're writing is going to impact how it's viewed.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious. One of the things about being mixed is there's the being black and mixed for another marginalized identity, and then there's black, Asian, whatnot, and being mixed with whiteness. And so I'm wondering if you've seen any comics that do it well or tackle that narrative, because in all the things I read, that's one I can never seem to find two characters who are black or mixed facials, because I think that adds issues of colorism and a whole lot of other experiences. So have you seen any comics that do it well, and if so, what does that look like?
I have not. The closest that we've seen is probably Concrete Park, because that was my little nod to Puerto Ricans, because Puerto Ricans are a mix of Spanish, Native, and Black and white, and so you really they inhabit many mixed people and have it an interesting intersectional space. So you're asking if I've seen books that do where you have a black and Latino character who's black and Latino?
Yeah, just as an example.
Yeah.
A black person who's mixed with other marginalized races, and
Yes.
then a black person who's mixed with whiteness, and an interaction or something between those two characters, and what that looks like.
Not that I've seen yet. Yeah, we need more.
Just reading, I think it was a comic or something that did have a character like that. I'll try to remember it for you. But you make an incredibly valid point that stretches not just beyond. This is going to get kind of odd, and I've done a lot of reading. I will not be able to link all the sources that I've compiled over the years, but that is an interesting manifestation. The mixing of whiteness, having that be the pure default, and going from it with the whatever brown that someone decides to throw in. That manifests not only with facial features and skin tones, and colorism is a huge thing, again, which is why we're kind of harping on all of the characters up there. A lot of those women you saw were light skinned. Oh my God, what was I saying? I just lost my train of thought. Oh, yes. Having that kind of pure white default and mixing it with the other is a huge thing that manifests, not even just from visible human characters, but for instance, high fantasy characters. Usually there's the white human warrior, level 5 male, right? And if you have your other characters, they're also always mixed with the exotic other, which are usually characters like elves or, I don't know, tieflings or a thing, or gnomes or whatever. That are often coded as some sort of minority, or they have the tribal aesthetic and that sort of stuff, but it's mixed with this pure white human level 5 warrior male. So it's hard. That's an incredibly valid point. We're in a weird spot where we're kind of recognizing it's not a black and white issue. but we're not
But
ready
it's
to
still black
commit.
and white.
We're not ready to commit past that,
Yeah.
because that's not our little, little itty bitty
Yeah.
dev hearts can handle for some reason.
Yeah.
Um,
Did you have a question?
How do you think Marvel did with Ultimate Spider-Man?
I don't
Is
have
that
an
the
opinion
TV
'cause I don't
show?
know.
The book where he's half black, half Puerto Rican.
Miles Morales, that guy. I unfortunately have not read that one. I've seen a lot of pictures of Donald Glover as Spider-Man, but that's as close as I've gotten. How do you feel about it?
That's actually kind of next on our lit review list.
They did pretty good.
They did good?
I don't think they lit it up too bad. They still kind of like gave it a little bit of flavor, so.
Nice.
Yeah, they were doing an animated one.
Nice.
I
Awesome.
think Donald Glover's doing the voice for it or something
He's
like that.
doing the voice, yeah.
They finally made him Spider-Man. Took like 5 years.
Yep.
Yeah, so my question is, well, first of all, when you use the definition multi-racial or multi-ethnic and biracial and bi-ethnic, are they kind of the same thing, talking about the same thing? Or, and then I got another question.
Yeah, so that's a good question. The question was, because we were using the terms interchangeably, multi-ethnic, multiracial, or biracial, or bi-ethnic. Actually, I don't think I said that because that doesn't sound good. Yeah, so that was probably just me saying words quickly. I'm personally multi-ethnic because I have like lots of different things happening. And yeah, so I probably was using them interchangeably, probably shouldn't have. One of the reasons why we chose to kind of center blackness was to get away from that. So it's interesting that I defaulted back into that language. Within like readings and writings around like biracial and multi-ethnic experiences, there is this kind of theory of like chopping yourself up into percentages, which is like really dehumanizing and weird, and doesn't actually allow you to be a full human or just be like part of your lived experiences. But that was kind of the way in which I was raised, was to be like, well, I'm this percentage of this, and I'm actively trying to get that out of myself and kind of just go with this identity of just, I'm a black woman. And that means all of those things, so.
So that's sort of like my other question was
Yeah.
like, was there some kind of like the dichotomy between being black or being white? Is there sort of like a external pressure to be one or the other? Like
Absolutely.
black people say, you're not black
Absolutely.
enough. You know, like when the President Obama was elected, the first black president. Well, we don't mention that his mom was white.
Yeah. But again, with this idea of centering blackness and saying that like blackness can encompass lots of different lived identities and ethnic backgrounds, he is black, as I'm black. I have a white mother. I'm black. Whoa. Right? It's an interesting leap to some degree, but it's not. 75% of black people like in 1865 were mixed. So there was a very small percentage of people that had just African blood. I mean, it's a quarter, but still, that's, you know. So by now, every black person that you encounter is actually multi-ethnic. So when I say I'm black, I'm not saying that I am from Sierra Leone. I'm saying I am black, as in part of the black diaspora living in the world. Yeah.
So I'm half Asian and half white. I don't really know my Asian culture very well at all.
Yeah.
And if I were to write something, I'd probably start with where I know, which is probably to have a white main character. But if I didn't want to, if I wanted to have at least a cast of other races, how would I go about making those characters sensitively embrace their other cultures?
I would say just ask other writers to write.
You can actually hire diversity readers. I would highly recommend that. There's actually a whole bunch in Seattle. You just send your papers up to whatever and they'll read them. And there's different people who specialize in reading content-wise for specific identities and how to be sensitive about those. As for writing that, I totally get you. I swear to God, I did not know I was Black until I was 15. Again, I was in a very white, private school. It was crazy. But there's nothing wrong with writing what you experienced, because it's you. You are perfect and correct and whole, just as you are. But if you want to spread past that, again, tapping into yourself from just a different lens can help. Asking other friends or relatives, and again, diversity readers, and even just Googling shit. Make sure you get a lot of, a wide variety of sources if you Google anything from a wide variety of different writers and backgrounds, just to cross-check and reference. But yeah, diversity readers.
And make friends. I mean,
that's easier said than done.
No, I mean, it sounds silly, but honestly, if your friend group all looks just exactly like you, I'm sorry. And it's not like we need to be checking boxes on our friend groups, but we do live in, sure, Seattle is really white, but there's also a lot of other people here, okay? So, just make friends, invite them to dinner, go to their house for,
Just walk in. I'm your friend now.
But a lot can happen in relationships. So much can happen in relationships. You can learn so much and enrich, your life. Part of the requirement at the lab that we have is that people go and attend, cultural events, either cultural club meetings or cultural events. So they actually go and, have lived experiences with folks that are of a different background than them, right? And that's just kind of a small way to get people to kind of get out of their comfort zone, make themselves a little bit uncomfortable, and start making connections and relationships with different people. Yeah?
Just to speak to what you were saying, I actually kind of had the opposite of what you're saying, where a lot of understanding my Blackness came from meeting another mixed Black person.
Yeah.
From a similar socioeconomic perspective, point. She's from Kansas and is a woman, so obviously inherently different perspective. But it was kind of comparing notes where I was I'm not Black, and then she was have these things happened to you? And I was yes. And so which isn't to say that you have to be that you are inherently some amount of Asian or not Asian.
Yeah.
But I have friends who are mixed Asian, because I grew up around a lot of Asian people, and it was definitely the kind of thing where you don't necessarily understand when your race is coming into play unless you start seeing it happen to someone who looks like you or has a similar situation as you, and you're realizing, oh, my race was relevant. This is a racial, charged experience. And I think that's, if you meet people who have that same situation, you might start realizing, oh, okay, this actually maybe is kind of a personal experience that is cultural that I can write from. That's a perspective.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? Yeah.
I mean, I just missed this, but I was wondering how you guys selected the 4 books that you went over. Were they meant to be a range or the best, or?
I think what we kind of went from when we started out, which is the reason why Miles Morales didn't make it on there, is we wanted to kind of again start with what we knew, which was stuff that had already reached us through other channels, so they were popular, right? And they were women, and they were represented kind of our ethnic mix, right? So it was very easy for us to kind of get a hold of it, see it, and start breaking it down. As we kind of move forward, we're going to be kind of having to expand that. We also did, of course, read Black Panther, because why not? So, but yeah, that's kind of where it started from.
Okay, so a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of what might be out there that you would call some of your best then, or are you still kind of?
Read it all.
Read it all.
And
Yeah.
infer your choices and decisions.
I don't hate any of these.
We read them all. We own all of these books.
I actually like all of them, even though I trashed on some of them. But that's how I am about the things I love.
Be critical of all of the
Yeah.
media you consume, and you'll come away with some pretty interesting research.
Yeah, and I mean, it's great. All of them are beautiful and have these amazing stories and moments to teach us. So, like, none of these I hate. And none of these were, like, just completely so offensive that I was like, this shouldn't even be out. No. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is just a small thing.
Sorry.
Did you include in your reading Goldie Vance?
No.
She is multiracial. She's
Uh-huh.
a white mom, but she lives primarily with her Black father, and it's also a period piece. And
Nice.
she's younger. It's like, compared to these, it's a more of a YA read.
Okay.
But because I don't have the lived experience, I don't know if her experience,
Yeah.
you know, what her experience feels like.
Are we getting your email?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have ours?
No.
You're gonna.
Yeah, this is really around seeing what is out there and reading it. There's other things on here that we could have mentioned. I don't know if you guys have read Kindred, Octavia Butler's novel that they made into a graphic novel. Amazing. We didn't include that in this either.
It's a little graphic.
It's
Brace
intense.
yourself.
But really great. So we're always looking for new material. And again, it's like one of the things that we were looking at is what is popular, right? Because that means something. Like if we're all talking about it, then it's, it's hitting a nerve, So,
We only have like 30 seconds left.
Yes, we have like 30 seconds.
You said two of those four took place in a prison.
Yes.
Male or female writers?
Ooh, okay, so this one I think is a male writer, Concrete Park.
Yeah.
And then
Bitch Planet
Bitch Planet is Kelly Sue DeConnick, which is a female writer.
Yeah.
Just curious.
Okay.
So I didn't get your names.
Ina Braxton.
Morgan Thomas.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think you can scroll us
Oh,
back
yeah,
all
we
the way
could.
to the front and you'll see our names, except we have to.
Oh wait, no, we're gonna put up. This is
What are you doing?
No,
Those are, it's at the
we
front.
don't have contact.
It's at the front.
I was looking for our contacts.
It's at the front.
Is it?
Yes.
This?
Ish.
No.
Sort of. Okay, it's the very front.
There.
Oh,
Okay.
there it is.
Sorry. Well, I think that's time for now. Thank you so much for coming. Come and talk to us afterwards if you still have questions or things that you think would be good reads to include.